January 15, 2026 Reno County Planning Commission meeting to order. Staff, will you please call the roll?
Nisley. Here. Strand. Here. Schaefer.
Here.
Seltzer. Here. Macklin.
Here.
Martin. Here. Gertson.
Here. Welcome to everyone here. We have just a little bit of annual housekeeping to do in this meeting. Then we'll get into the cases involved. First, I trust that we all had a chance to review their packets, and in those packets were the minutes from our December 18, 2025 meeting. Chair will entertain a motion on those minutes.
Move to be approved as presented. I second that.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the approval of December 18, 2025 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Okay, first item of new business is the election of the 2026 chairperson. Floor will be open for nominations.
I would nominate Russ Gertson.
Second.
Any other nominations? Please.
I move the nomination cease. I move the nomination cease.
Staff, will you go ahead and call the roll on that? I'll abstain from the vote.
Nisley.
Yes.
Strand.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Seltzer.
Yes.
Macklin.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
And then Gertson.
Abstain. Another year.
You got it.
All right.
Last year.
Last year. Right.
We appreciate your work, Chairman.
Yes, we do.
Do it. Good job running the show.
For the right-hand man of the chair, we need to elect a vice chair. Floor is open for nominations for the vice chair.
Chairman, I nominate Jack to continue in his role as vice chairman.
Second.
Second. Any other nominations? Staff, please.
Make the motion for nominations to cease.
Okay, thank you.
Second that.
If you want to call the roll.
Nisley.
Yes.
Strand.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Seltzer.
Yes.
Macklin.
Yes.
Martin. I'll abstain. And then Gertson.
Yes. Jack, we're partners in crime for another year. All right, moving on to item D on the agenda. The Kansas Supreme Court has defined a rezone or a conditional use permit public hearing as a quasi-judicial function to ensure the rights of all parties of interest to provide an opportunity for each party to address the Planning Commission in an orderly manner. The Planning Commission will follow the fact-finding procedure which is outlined in the handout and on each chair. Your attention to this procedure is appreciated. If a recommendation is made tonight, that recommendation will be based upon the record of information presented to the Planning Commission. The County Commissioners will not conduct a separate public hearing or accept additional written documents. The County Commissioners will consider written requests for additional public comments or documents based only on valid claims that the public hearing process was incomplete or based upon new information which has become available since the public hearing. For purposes of this County Commission policy, a public hearing is considered incomplete only if the Planning Commission failed to follow procedural guidelines which resulted in a denial of due process to a party of interest, or if the Planning Commission failed to allow an interested party an opportunity for public comment. For purposes of the County Commission policy, new information shall pertain only to germane information which did not exist at the time of the public hearing, or which was unknown or could not have been discovered with reasonable diligence. An example may be a traffic study completed after the Planning Commission recommendation. The Planning Commission recommendation to the County Commissioners will be accompanied by a summary of proceedings before Planning Commission at its public hearing, along with a report and recommendation of the county planner, letters, informal petitions, and other information constituting the record of proceedings provided to the Planning Commission before and during the public hearing. If If the planning commission makes a recommendation after tonight's public hearing, this case will be presented to the county commissioners at their next available meeting after the protest period expires. Contact planning staff or visit the website for the county commission agenda items. Any party who wishes to require the county commissioners decide this case by supermajority vote can file a protest petition pursuant to KSA 12-757 at the office of the Reno County Clerk, 125 West 1st Avenue, Hutchinson, Kansas, within 14 days following the decision by the Planning Commission. The form is on the Reno County website, Planning Department webpage. I'll now formally open the public hearing regarding case number 2025-11, a request by 2641 Wanamaker LLC, agent Andrew Gearing, PE, Engineering Consultants, PA, to rezone approximately 180 acres of land from R2 Suburban Residential District to AG Agricultural District for the purpose of eliminating the possibility of establishing a high-density residential subdivision. The parcel is located at the northeast corner of 4th Avenue and North Beulah Road. Have any planning commission members had any outside contact regarding this case?
No.
Do any planning commissioners have any conflict of interest in this case?
No.
Okay, at this time, we'll hear from the applicant. Will the applicant please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record? You have 10 minutes. Or since this is a complex application, we may have a little bit of leeway there. If you have 10 minutes, there's 10 minutes to present your case. Additional time may be allotted at the discretion of the chair. Planning Commission members may request clarification at the end of your presentation or may have questions.
I'm the applicant on the application, Andrew Gehring, representative by Engineering Consultants, PA in Hutchinson, so local engineering firm. I'm actually going to pass it off to Brent, who's going to handle kind of the presentation side, but we're just the local engineer and the applicant listed on the change, the rezoning.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm Brent Hugo. I'm with CE Golf Design. I'm one of the golf course architects on the project. Just an overview. Everybody knows this is the former Cottonwood Hills Golf Course that was not operating for the last however many years. The fire that came through destroyed all the trees on the site. Since then, the site has been cleared, ready for a new golf course. And our intent is to build an entirely new facility, not using any of the current golf course that's there. We're going to build a new two 18-hole destination golf courses, a 9-hole par 3 course. And by destination golf course, I mean courses similar to Bandon Dunes in Oregon, without the ocean, of course, Landman or Rodeo Dunes in Nebraska, Sand Valley and Erin Hills, Wisconsin, or the Big Cedar courses in Branson. It's something that we think will attract people from all over the Midwest and even the country. It's a big site. There's 620 acres. We're going to have 2 courses. The Dunes course, which will be on the western half of the site, and then the Prairie course, which will be on the eastern half of the site. Both courses will be very natural, taking advantage of the sand dunes that exist out there. That's a really striking feature of the courses, very similar to Prairie Dunes Country Club that's already here in town. We're going to have a 9-hole par 3 course, kind of up to the north, tucked between the 2 courses, just as another option for people coming in, staying at the course and playing. We'll even have a night-lit putting course, about 2 acres, right adjacent to our clubhouse. Let's see, clubhouse and lodging. We're gonna have a large clubhouse with fine dining located in the central portion of the site. We're gonna have a cart and caddy facility that will house up to 250 golf carts to service both courses. We'll offer caddies as well. And then we're going to have lodging on site consisting of about 200 rooms when it's fully built out to accommodate overnight guests. That'll consist of about 30 4-bedroom cottages, 4 8-bedroom owner suites, and 2 24-bedroom lodges. The lodges will be accessed by pedestrian and golf cart access. Parking will all be centralized in a location adjacent to the clubhouse. And then we're going to have, obviously, paved entry road, kind of the same entry road that are similar to the entry road alignment that was there before, but all brand new and all paved. In addition to the golf course is another utilization. In the off-season will be a hunting lodge. We'll utilize the on-site lodging and the clubhouse and restaurant for the hunting activities, but all hunting activities would be off-site on leased property through local guides. So that's pretty much the overview of the project right there.
Do you have any questions for the applicant?
Not yet.
Thank you for now. Now we'll hear from the staff.
Mark Von Atchen, County Planner. So the first case before the board tonight is dealing with just the rezone of the property, not the specifics of what's going to potentially happen on the property. So this request is to rezone the southwest portion of that acreage from R2 to Ag. The application was really submitted at my request since there's no real high-density residential development being proposed with their operations that they're looking at putting on this parcel. So rather than have a large section of this area, zone R2, with the potential of having numerous home sites or other types of land uses with small lots out there, I requested, and the applicant did agree, to go ahead and petition to rezone that portion of the property from R2 to agricultural. The zoning on that property was put in place by the previous owner because he, at that time, was proposing a high-density residential, commercial, industrial development. And the reason we left that in place was because that's where it was originally intended, but also in exchange for granting him that ability of having that high-density residential, he agreed to vacate the original subdivision plat. So that's why that R2 zoning is in place, right now. But the old plat consisted of industrial, commercial, and high-density residential development. And so that's not part of this new development, so that's why I'm requesting to go ahead and rezone it from R2 to Ag. I would point out, though, that all the land uses that they are proposing right now on the property could be allowed in the R2 zoning district with a conditional use permit, same thing as in the Ag district. So rezoning the land doesn't have anything to do with what they're doing right now. It's both permitted in both zoning districts. It's just a matter of eliminating that possibility of having a high-density residential subdivision development in that area. And of course, as you've seen with these concurrent conditional use permit applications, they're not proposing to do that. I would advise the board and also the audience members that any questions you have on the specifics of what is going to be potentially taking place on this property be reserved for the conditional use permit public hearing. There'll be another public hearing after a recommendation is made on that. Right now, if you have specific questions on why this should or should not be rezoned from R2 to Ag, those are the questions that should be addressed right now before me and before the Planning Commission here. I'm going to really defer a lot of my staff report to what you have in the packet here. I don't know if I need to go into a lot of specifics, although I would advise you that your recommendation to the County Commission should be based on those factors that you see in my staff report. And I'm certainly available to answer any questions that you may have with my staff report in the write-up here, but I don't see the need in this particular case to really go through the specifics of that. So I'll certainly stand for any questions, but staff is going to recommend approval of the request to rezone the property from R2 to agricultural. It's going to be based off of the 12 factors that you see in your staff report. And I would also remind the board that you cannot place conditions of approval on a rezone request. It's either yes, we make a recommendation to approve the rezone, or no, we make a recommendation to deny the rezone based off of those factors. In conclusion, I would say that we sent letters to 54 different property owners as depicted by the dotted line on the screen, and nobody submitted any kind of written response to me regarding the rezone request. So with that, I would stand for any questions from the board.
Mark, you shared just a little bit of history there. Was that zone rezoned to R2 when the subdivision was proposed back in the day, or or was that always R2?
It wasn't always R2. Prior to that, it was zoned to multiple zoning districts back in the day when this was first being proposed. It was zoned low-end commercial, high-end commercial, it was zoned industrial. We had public zoning districts, and so there was a conglomeration of zoning districts within that portion of the development. And as you may recall, in 2016, when we switched our zoning concept from the commercial industrial level to a residential, agricultural, and conditional use-based zoning, we don't have the ability to put in commercial and industrial zoning districts, so we had to come up with a zoning district that would fit out there. And at that time, staff, in conjunction with the previous owner, decided that R2 is what he requested, and we granted that request. And
So, Mark, why, with the surrounding neighbors are generally zoned R1, so why was it zoned R2 instead of keeping in character with its neighbors?
the idea behind that was, at that time, the previous development was going to have a public sewer system and a public water system. So the R2 zoning district allows for lots to go from 1 acre up to, say, 3 acres in size, subject to that public sewer and public water being available. That was the intent, really, at that time, and it never materialized, so the R2 zoning stayed in place. If it would be developed to that level, certainly that'd be something that we would be looking at as staff, if you're going to have a public sewer and or public water system to serve those lots. But yeah, it was intended to be public sewer and water at that time.
Mark, were there any zoning changes when the past golf course went in there that I should be knowledgeable of?
There was, at the time that the original development was being proposed, there were a zoning change being requested at that time for various industrial, commercial, public, and residential, for that matter, zoning districts. So, but when we did this in 2016, there was not a petition to rezone the property, because we were doing a comprehensive look at all the zoning on the properties, and so with that, you don't have to notify property owners for that type of rezone.
Mark, being our expert on our zoning codes and thinking of R2 as it is now versus ag, are there, what, if any, in your opinion, are possible negatives from putting this, changing R2 to ag? For example, I think I'm correct that on building heights on an ag zone property, there's no height limit.
There is no height limit.
So
in ag.
are there other considerations in that realm that would be maybe a negative to that area or those people surrounding that area?
Not right now, not that I can think of, because since we're a conditional use-based type of zoning, if any type of land use wants to go in there other than some type of agricultural or a residential house, then it's going to come back through this board, through the conditional use permit, through the public hearing notification process. And so I don't see any negatives. All I see is the one big factor of eliminating that request to be able to potentially have a large residential high-density subdivision in that area, which right now they could do with just submitting a subdivision plat now. If it's changed back to ag, and then concepts change, and then they want to go and have more of a residential look to the development, now they gotta come back, they have to rezone, we're gonna notify the property owners, and we're gonna go back through that same process again to see if it's appropriate. Really, high-density residential R2 zoning is not really appropriate without the availability of public sewer and public water. So I don't really see a negative.
Moving it back to ag is really more of a protection for the surrounding property owners, actually.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
If there's anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this case, and I'll remind you, it's just strictly at this point, comments on the rezoning of this property. You may have 5 minutes to comment. Please come forward to the podium one at a time and state your name and address for the record before commenting. Audience members are only permitted to address the Planning Commission from the podium. Audience members are permitted only one time at the podium. In the interest of time, if you agree with the comments previously made by other audience members, please don't repeat the comments. Simply state that you agree with the previous and then present new information to the Planning Commission. Statements and questions should only be directed to the Planning Commission, not the applicant or staff. The Planning Commission may choose not to answer questions or engage with the public. Questions regarding the application can be asked to the Planning Commission, and answered by the applicant during the rebuttal phase of the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this, concerning the rezone?
Lucas Hayden from 616 North Victory Road. So when they first started doing this, they sent out a water rights deal saying how much water they're planning to use. When they first did the golf course years ago, changing it to ag, is that gonna change the water rights that they filed for and water usage rights and all that? Are they gonna be using more water since it's gonna be 2 golf courses now instead of just the one? That's all I have. Thank you.
It's not gonna change. Changing it back, zoning is just the overlay for the property and the uses that are permitted. It's not gonna change anything with the water rights that they have.
Is there anyone else?
Staff and Commission, my name is Don Rogers. I own Wells Aircraft in Hutchinson. Been there 20 years and helped fight the fires on this property. And we support Tanker 95 in the area based at the airport. Based on both of these, and I'll just speak this time, I would be in support of this concept. As the airport operations, we are bringing a lot of people to our community that are using Prairie Dunes currently. It's one of the 3rd largest users of the airport currently that come in. Their lodging stays in, and they do a fine job of bringing business, and we have owners now that are buying community properties and businesses because they were exposed to the operation that a concept like this will work. I don't know a lot about their concept, but if it's anything similar. One of our second largest users of the airport is Hoorah, which is down in Kingman County. We get them here because of our airport can handle the traffic. The nice thing about that as well is they're bringing in hunters. I don't hunt, but they bring in quite a few. And we have 2 of those that have bought aircraft and are now moving to Hutchinson because of that operation. They're not going to Kingman, they're coming to Reno County and the airport. So I think the overnight guest idea is a great concept. It brings revenue into our community, definitely brings revenue into the airport. And even though it's a city-owned airport, it is in our county, and it is a big plus for us to have it here. And so anything that we can do to gain additional traffic and bring in businesses that will be associated with the airport, I'm in support of. The answer of the tower's too tall, I will tell you that the FAA won't let them do that. Those 3 towers that are out there now, the FAA would take them down if they had a chance to. So anything that goes up above that may be permitted, they're not going to be able to get put in, which I don't know what they put in to be tall enough. But to answer the question, that property is so close to the airport, it would be governed by the FAA, and they don't do a lot of things. That's all I have.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment regarding the zoning overlay? Zoning change, excuse me. Does the applicant have any additional statements or any rebuttal statements to make? Okay. Staff, do you have any additional comments or any rebuttal?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does the commission have any further questions for the applicant or staff? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Acceptance or denial of the rezone must be based on the factors that
Received from Luana Clark White.
the acceptance or denial of the rezone must be based on the factors that are listed in the staff report and found on the audience chairs. This is the time Planning Commission can discuss this case and ask procedural questions of staff only. Is there any further discussion or questions by the Planning Commission? Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion on this case.
Mr. Chairman, I move that case number 2025-11, request by 2641 Wanamaker LLC, requesting a rezone of approximately 180 acres of land from R2 Suburban Residential District to AG Ag Agricultural District, be approved based on the 12 factors listed in the staff report and as heard at this public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, staff, please call the roll.
Nisley? Yes. Strand?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Seltzer?
Yes.
Macklin?
Yes,
Martin?
Yes.
And Gertson?
Yes. Motion carries. Zoning is changed. Okay. We'll move on to agenda item E. I'll just remind the audience that the statements made prior to the previous case regarding the rules of conduct still apply. I'll now formally open case 2025-12, a request by 2641 Wanamaker LLC, Agent Andrew Gearing, PE, Engineering Consultants, PA, for a conditional use permit to develop a golf course resort on land zoned agricultural district. The property is located at the northeast corner of East 4th Avenue and North Bueller Road. Have any of the planning commissioners had any outside contacts regarding this case? No.
no,
Do any planning commission members have a conflict of interest with this case?
No.
Okay, seeing none, will the applicant please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record? You've got 10 minutes, or at the discretion of the chair, time to describe the plan. Additional time may be allotted. Planning commission members may request clarification at the end of your presentation or may have questions.
Andrew Gearing again, the applicant. We're good with the comments previously made as far as explaining what we have going on. There is another exhibit that we sent which shows maybe in greater detail what the plan is, which should be in your packet, I believe.
Any of the commissioner members have any questions for the applicant?
I've got one concern or two concerns. kind of looking at the proposed layout of this thing, you have one primary means of entrance and exit to the facility. You know, there's a service road, I think, going out on 4th Street, but it's a gravel, narrow, much more narrow road, I think. You know, and this area has been, I say prone, but is subject to possible wildfire areas. So have you taken that into consideration as far as means of evacuating your guests if you have to, having only one road and still allowing emergency equipment in and out? And as a corollary to that, as far as adequate water supplies for fire protection.
Stamped. Those things have been addressed.
Yeah, we have thought about that, and the access you're talking about off of 4th Avenue here comes up, and that probably will be a gravel road of some sort, but it will be wide enough to handle any emergency vehicles that need to access that. This will be a paved entrance coming in here, and this secondary access will be gravel road, but plenty wide enough to handle cars and fire.
How wide is plenty wide?
20 feet. Wider than some of the roads out there now.
I guess while we're on the topic of fire, there's going to be a lot of people on site there. Will any of those buildings have fire suppression systems or?
Yeah, and we're in the process of designing those buildings now, and the architects happen to be here tonight, but it's one of the things we're talking about. All of the buildings would have fire protection, have sprinkler systems in them.
On your plan, you have 2 sets of 2 rows of, looks like lodging on either side of the entrance drive. Okay, access for emergency vehicles for those. The way I understand it, those are going to be accessed only by cart path. Is that cart path wide enough to accommodate an emergency vehicle?
We plan on working with the fire department and making sure that those are accessible by fire trucks and ambulance, yes. And those would be a concrete or asphalt paved surface.
Okay.
In the project description from engineering consultants on 5B, it mentions a public water main as a possibility. Is there any public water supply out there now? Was there like a particular public water system had in mind?
There's a current petition to the city of Hutchinson for water supply, and it's in negotiation now, so that's why it was posed as a potential.
Okay, so the potential is to get it from the city of Hutchinson.
The city of Hutchinson would be there.
I guess on the same subject, water, my understanding is that golf courses are heavy water users, and you're proposing 2.5 golf courses. So is there a known water right amount that you're looking for as far as?
Andrew's been working on this.
I assume that water is probably a big reason that people are concerned. The water rights at the golf course currently include both the residential and what was going to be planned for Cottonwood Hills irrigation. All of those are under the same property, and so they're, as far as what they've already been allotted, none of that is expected to change, at least not with this conditional use permit. So the amount of water rights is remaining the same as it is on the current property. With the usage, it's all, yeah. It's a matter of, it's not a legal matter as far as they've already been given the rights. The property has the rights to pump a certain amount of water. It will change compared to what they're pumping now, but the rights are already on the current system and are not being pursued to change right now, so.
You know what the rights are in terms of?
Yeah, just a little bit behind the curtain is, in this particular area, there's quite a bit of unused water rights as well. So above even what is permitted, it's not at its max permit. And we have copies. The water rights haven't been perfected because the golf course obviously never got built out. They weren't able to pump at the rate that they had acquired the rights for. But on top of that, there's also significant amount of water rights available to this area of the way that Department of Water Resources does. They do like a quarter-mile radius, and within the radius of the golf course, there's quite a bit of water rights still unclaimed above even what they are currently allotted. So it's a water plentiful area. Some places in Kansas are not that way, but according to the best records of Department of Water Resources, it is a water plentiful area. So.
And do you know what that allotment is?
I would have to check the numbers exactly on what they are, but it is permitted through and can be checked on the Water Resources websites. You can find per parcel, just like you could any residential, what they're allotted, so.
After you applied for the water rights, don't you have a period of time to perfect the water rights? And
Yes.
what is that time?
Yeah, so there's a current water right that is coming up at the end of its perfection, and then the other two, I think, still have, I'm going to ballpark 20 years on their perfection rights. And so that's kind of where they're at. Is one of them is am I right on that, Brent? I think last we had talked.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. So they're still in that period where they can be perfecting their water rights, trying to get up to their maximum. And so that works well with a golf course that may use more water, needing to perfect those rights. They still are in that period where they can do that legally through their previous rights.
From 32665.
Again, I probably should have gotten more information on that for you all, but that's all public documents as far as the permitting process through the Department of Water Resources. Yeah.
The hunting lodge part, I understand that the actual hunting is going to be off-site, but will there be any discharging of firearms on this property?
We don't plan on any hunting or skeet shooting or anything like that on this site.
Target practice?
None of that is.
Firing range?
None of that is planned on this site. Any firing of guns would be off-site, at least hunting property.
How much, if you're planning on leasing property for hunting, do you have any idea what kind of a size you're looking for?
I think that the owners have been in discussion with some people about 5,000 to 6,000 acre tracts. I think that's here in Reno County, or I'm not 100% sure where that is. But that will be off-site from here.
There was some mention earlier, I think maybe you mentioned it, about a putting area lit at night. Can you flesh that out a little bit more?
So
From the perspective of neighboring properties being impacted?
So, and that, I could just point out to you real quick that activity would be right here, right adjacent to the clubhouse, right in the middle of the site. And in those instances, we usually use very low lighting, like almost bollards, and it's targeted throughout the green so that so basically you can see where you're going on the putting green, but it's not creating a lot of light pollution. And being in the center of the site, most of the neighbors wouldn't even notice it was there.
And I guess the same question for the driving range, although I did not hear any description of a driving range that would have lights.
We have no plans of lighting the driving range. No plans of lighting anything other than the entry road, and the buildings, and then that putting course is the only things we plan on lighting.
You mentioned fine dining. Is that going to be open to the public?
The whole facility will be a public access facility. It's going to be a high-end, the golf courses will be, in the area of $250 to $300 green fees. And The dining will be open to the public, but obviously the golfers and the people staying on site will have first access to that.
Our emergency manager director had some comments, and he did not mention tornado shelters, but again, thinking to potential of 2+100 people on site, do you have that factored into your plan?
It's something we've been discussing today with the architects, and we're going to have, basically everybody's going to be in that central location, and we'd like to do a tornado shelter, possibly in the cart storage facility or in the clubhouse. But yes, we have talked about that.
Other questions for the applicant?
I have a couple, Mr. Chairman, if the board's done. So Brent, somebody, or yourself or on your team, we've discussed water somewhat, and I think we have a pretty good idea on that. Is there any update on the sewer aspect of it? I know that this is going to be way beyond the county's ability to permit on sewer, so is there an update you can provide with KDG, like maybe Andrew, or?
I can do that. Yeah, and the facility actually, treating it similar to other part-time housing, so like a hotel or something where people are out on the golf course, they're not doing dishes, they're not washing laundry, the things that really produce a lot of sewer runoff. They're using bathrooms.
Yeah.
The lagoon, I was sizing it just earlier this week, is coming out about 200 by 200, so it's still not a giant facility at the end of the day. We didn't pursue permitting it through the county just for protection of the county, to not have to even guess if it was in their wheelhouse. We're gonna go through KDHE just to make sure that the state knows what's going on, that we follow all their regs, rather than trying to sneak it through the county and any shady business like that. So we're going through KDHE just at the start, because it is a little bit bigger, but it's not so huge that it warrants really a bigger study than that. Similar to other facilities that have temporary housing or things like that people are using. So if that answers your question on
So
that.
you're in basically, yeah, you're in communication with them, and they're going to be
They're
helping
going to
you.
permit it at
And
the
they're
end
going
of
to
the day,
permit.
and it'll have to operate under their small systems permit, so.
My second question had to deal with the pipeline easement. I don't know if that's going to be you or somebody else on the team here. I know in our previous conversations, we talked that you were going to be working with the pipeline representatives, and they're aware of this project. At one time, I had requested, something in writing from them, and I know they may be hesitant to provide something, but basically for the record, could you just, talk about, the project and their acceptance of it? Because when I measure, it looked like maybe from the pipeline easement, maybe those lodges are about 100 foot from the pipeline easement, and as the pipeline companies, are they satisfied with the layout right now?
They are, and we've met with them on site several times. And basically, they said anything outside of their actual easement is fine.
Okay.
They said we can cross with golf holes and we can cross with the entry road, and they're okay with that. We're going to work with them. They said that there's some areas where that pipeline's a little more shallow than they would like, and we're going to work with them to get fill over the top of those areas as well.
Very good. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
What kind of pipeline is it? Is it gas?
It's a petroleum, or no, it's a crude oil pipeline, I believe. There's actually a petroleum pipeline on the east side of the property there. But we don't cross that with anything. So.
But it's not high-pressure gas, then?
I don't know for sure that it's a question for them. I'm not sure.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, we will now hear the planning staff report.
I think we've had some very good discussion between the applicant and the board. So again, I think rather than go through the majority of my report. Rather lengthy, I think I'm going to try and hit a lot of the highlights, here. We've talked about the various uses that are going to be occurring, on that property. I would mention and clarify for the record that all the roads they're going to be accessing, they're going to be private roads. They're not going to be township roads maintained by the township. They're not going to be county roads. They're going to be private roads, so the maintenance is going to be strictly with the applicant there. Now, we as a board can review, like we have done here, the width of the roads here, and I've made comments on that as well as emergency management and Hutchinson Fire District. Again, Hutchinson Fire has also commented, on that, making sure that there is a wide enough access to pass, say, two fire trucks. And I've made comments, and I've noted that in my staff report that they're involved in this. They've approved of the write-up of what they are doing right now, and they're going to continue to work with the fire department on the access routes. We want to make sure that, there's a way to get to the property. And so just want to make sure that everybody's aware that the main entrance will be off of Beulah Road. The secondary access will be off of 4th Avenue. You see where the maintenance building is. The maintenance building is going to be on the south side. That will provide a secondary exit to and from that property. It won't be the main entrance, but it can be used in case it's needed here. Talk a little bit about parking, paving, loading requirements, as we always do with all conditional use permits. Actually, in our regulations, the number of parking stalls for a clubhouse is really left up to this board and the county commission. So it's at your discretion whether you believe 200 parking stalls is sufficient for this type of development here. My conclusion in that it was. If you feel like there needs to be additional parking, it is certainly within your right to request that. The maintenance facility also does require, some parking because it is an actual four-sided structured building here. You see in my staff report that the plan shows about 25 parking spaces here. One of those is going to be mainly just offices for the maintenance workers here. The other one's going to be more of a storage facility. So the number of parking stalls that the regulations require, which is 40, will probably be way too much, and so you would need to issue a waiver for that requirement here so they don't have to put in that many parking stalls. Some of the lodges up on the northern part of the property, they're going to be accessible according to their documents by car. The majority of them are not going to be accessible by car, but the larger ones will have the ability to have vehicles driven to them, and so that's also going to require parking. And as you can see, the site plan that I have showed about 2 of the 8-bed lodges are going to share 8 parking stalls. Regulations, again, will require more than that, and so if you feel that the 8 is sufficient, then that would be another waiver that this board could consider and potentially recommend issuing here. And then lastly, on the parking, our regulations again require a loading space. The applicant does not need an actual loading space with their development, and so they've actually requested a written waiver of that requirement as well here. Erosion control permit through KDHE may also be required due to the amount of land that they may be disturbing, so that's something that they will have to contact KDHE on. And
We've already
done that. It's been approved.
So they've already done, you heard that, they've already done that. We talked about lighting and the type of lighting that's going to be on the facility. You're not going to be having huge light poles on the property to have any kind of light pollution. So I believe that they've sufficiently answered that. The next part of my report talks about the factors, and these factors are different than the rezone factors, but these are the factors that we review for every single conditional use permit. And so again, I'm happy to answer questions if you need any kind of clarification on my staff report. Probably what I will do is just reference the comprehensive plan and how I believe that this development does comply with our comprehensive plan. There's many goals that I've listed. I'll highlight 3 of them. One of them was to promote business and industrial development consistent with the overall quality of life within Reno County, which would benefit the county's economy and not adversely affect the environment. The second one would be to ensure that new private development in rural Reno County does not negatively impact the existing transportation system nor place demands for major upgrades to the transportation system in a timely manner. Again, all of their development is going to be private roads, not maintained by the township or the county. And then lastly is to ensure that the future development occurs in a timely fashion and is adequately served by roads and other public facilities and services. So that's what I'll mention with the comprehensive plan. Again, if this board has questions on any of the other factors, I'm happy to answer. Again, I'd like to state again that, Hutch Fire Department has received this application. I've been in communication with them on the width of the roads and the surface of the roads. They have essentially reviewed that and reviewed comments that were submitted to me in writing by the developer, and they are satisfied with the widths of the road right now as it stands. I think you heard testimony here, especially with the road to the south, they're looking at going to 20 feet. That's something new that's come out at this public hearing. Wider is always better, I think, in this particular case here, but Hutch Fire was satisfied with the 10 to 12-foot original proposed access road. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the request for the conditional use permit for the golf course resort. It's going to be based off of the 10 factors that you see listed in my staff report. And then I have attached 8 conditions of approval. And for the record, I'd like to go over those with the board and kind of explain what some of them mean. The first one would be that the conditional use permit application is approved per the submitted site plan and plan of operation dated December the 11th, 2025. And the county response quote-unquote document dated December the 9th, 2025. That's the supplemental questions that I had submitted to the applicant. Number 2 is the surface of the access driveway off of North Beulah Road and main golf course parking lot shall consist of asphalt or concrete as described under question number 2 of the county response dated December the 9th. Again, since the development is off of a paved county road, the main one, then the parking lot and the access drive must be paved unless a waiver is requested and granted by the planning commission. And so they are planning on paving that, and so there was no waiver that is needed. The third one is in order to accommodate the two-way passage of emergency vehicles, the driving width of the access driveway off of North Beulah Road shall be a minimum of 24 feet. As detailed by the owner in an email submitted to me on December the 16th, 2025. Number 4 is the secondary entrance off of East 4th Avenue shall be constructed of gravel and be a minimum of 12 feet wide as detailed by the owner in an email dated December the 16th, 2025. Again, this was all submitted to Hutch Fire as well, and they've agreed to this. Number 5 is all construction is subject to the approval under the requirements of all public works divisions, codes, policies, and regulations. Number 6 is any changes to the character, intensity, or use of the parcels not capable of being discerned by the planning and zoning division as being consistent with this approval must be brought back before the planning commission for additional conditional use permit review. So a little question, a little clarification on what that means is as we go through this development, they're going to be permitted to build potentially everything that you see on that site plan. If they come back to me in a year or two and they say, well, we'd like to have another 20 by 20 maintenance shed, for example, or we want an additional smaller golf cart storage building, I would have to determine is that really consistent with your approval and potentially a county commissioner approval. If I say yes, then I can give them a zoning permit for that building. If I believe it is not, then they would have to come back before this board. So in reverse, another example, we're looking at potentially 36 lodge buildings there. If all of a sudden they want to do 50 lodge buildings, that's probably not really consistent with your approval, so then they would have to come back before this board for additional conditional use permit review. So that's what that is trying to say here. If I believe it's consistent with what we're approving potentially tonight, then we can give them. If not, then they have to come back before this board. The 7th is the applicant shall meet all applicable federal, state, and local regulations. So this would fall into play with, like, say, KDHE, the erosion control permit, the permit for the sewer system. So if we discover through them that they're not in compliance with that or there's concerns, then that is grounds to have the conditional use permit revoked. The last one is talking about that such as well, is that the county reserves the right to rescind the conditional use permit upon any violation of the county regulations or conditions of approval, and so on. Again, we sent letters to 54 different property owners in addition to the rezone, and we did not receive any written responses in favor or against. So with that, I would stand for questions from the board.
Question, Mark, on parking, you said around the car maintenance storage shed, they had 25 spaces, I believe. I'm assuming those would primarily be for employee parking. Is that going to be adequate, considering, you know, the number of, whatever estimated number of employees they might have?
I think that would be a question that the applicant answer. I believe probably it will be. But I think, you know, they can certainly talk about that, like in the next rebuttal phase on that. But I made the call, the determination that yes, it would be adequate for something like that.
Mark? I haven't seen much discussion about traffic changes. Like, do we have any idea of like how many additional cars per day or month we're going to be adding to 4th Street and Bueller Haven Road with this project?
Nothing's been submitted on that. As you know, Bueller Road's a highly traveled, road here. We don't know what kind of traffic we could potentially get, from this type of development here. Something in the future, we'd have to potentially revisit.
So it's like, I didn't know if there was any concern, you're in the middle of a section there, if you have lots of left-turning traffic, say, out on a 55-mile-an-hour blacktop.
Or even right-turning traffic where
They're slowing down, yeah.
Do you need turn lanes, I guess, would be the question.
Don, would that be, do you have an opinion on that?
We'll look into it.
Yeah, I don't know, the entrances are.
I guess I would think of Prairie Dunes on 30th Street, which would have maybe a similar traffic count.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they've got 18 holes instead of more than 18 holes, but
Is the speed limits to 55 up to the Prairie
Yeah.
Dunes? I can't remember, okay. It changes to the west of there, is that, okay.
I just don't have a feel for if there's any difference in traffic.
Yeah, and I don't know, are there more cabins, like people staying overnight, traveling in and out here?
Yeah, but Prairie Dunes, you have, all the
You
residences.
got a lot of
there
day-to-day
around,
stuff, so,
A couple other streets that they're pulling into for the residences around. the
There's
corners.
more cabins proposed here than what's at Prairie Dunes right now.
It's not like they all come at the same time.
No.
It'll be all spread out during the day.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
If there is anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this case, you may have 5 minutes to comment. Please come forward to the podium one at a time and state your name and address for the record before commenting. Audience members are only permitted to address the Planning Commission from the podium. Audience members are only permitted one time at the podium. In the interest of time, if you agree with the comments previously made by audience members, please don't repeat the comments. Simply state you agree with previous and present the new information to the Planning Commission. Statements and questions should only be directed to the Planning Commission, not the applicant or staff. The Planning Commission may choose not to answer questions or engage with the public. Questions regarding the application can be asked the Planning Commission and answered by the applicant during the rebuttal phase of the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment on this?
My name is Pete Hayden. My concern is they took all the trees down and made that place beautiful out there. Dug holes and put them in the ground and burned them. Now, when water goes over ash, the soil around it is permeated with lye. Now, is that going to affect the water quality around that area in the time, or are we safe? all I have.
Are you saying that's been done already?
Yes.
Yes, it has.
Yep.
My name is Jeffrey Brandt. I live at the end, way up there on Victory. I just want to know, since they still have all these water rights and everything, and they're going to talk about bringing public water in, how they're going to keep the pressure up, because it's at the top of the hill, one of the tallest hills in Reno County. And when it comes to the fire mitigation, are we going to put fire hydrants out there for the fire trucks so they don't have a 40-minute round trip and just driving? That's all I have.
My name is Cliff Bailey, and my concern is they've got one small lagoon for 36 cabins and a clubhouse, and all these people are going to be in there. And that lagoon is only going to sit about 50 or 100 feet from where they're irrigating at. That is their irrigation pond right there that's already been rubber lined, and I've seen that whole section, half of it underwater when we get a lot of rain. So if any of that floods over into that, they're pumping raw sewage back out. There should be, the KDHE should be approved of all of that before they get approved to build anything.
Evening. My name is Corey Calkins. I live off of Victory and 4th. I would like to state that developing another golf course is a terrible idea. There isn't a need for one when we have multiple golf courses already. If you don't like the fact that they're failing, consider investing money in them in contrast to new course. Sorry, excuse me. As I see it, Mr. Klessman just wants a rural place to play golf and avoid paying his taxes, which is the developer. He is not and never has been a resident of Reno County and doesn't understand the history behind that land. As most of you know, that plot of land burnt down about 4 or 5 years ago. It rehomed multiple families, killed a man, and all of their pets. It's a tragedy, and it still is a tragedy. As someone who watched a family suffer due to that, I find it appalling that the second the land is usable again, and families can start returning to their lands, some random businessman saw cheap land and decided he wanted a golf course. To me, it feels like a spit in the face. Especially when he started demolition, leaving screws and nails along 4th, causing multiple people to have to get new tires fixed, their tires fixed or new tires, however you be, and not to mention them doing multiple controlled burns during a fire ban, which started that fire. If you would really like to do something with that land, consider a hiking trail or something that any member of society can enjoy, not just something for rich old men. I hope that you can see that this would be an unwise decision to let happen with the following factors in mind. Mr. Klausman owes a lot of money in taxes and doesn't have any care for the residents here in Reno. We don't need another golf course, and that despite being half a decade, the residents of that neighborhood are still healing and deserve their respect. Have a great day.
I've got something a little, oh, my name is Clint Bailey, by the way, and I lived at 406 Palomino before my house burned down. But I've got a little different perspective. I want to know if the Planning Commission has done any kind of study. There's a tower right here. I don't know of any other golf courses around a tower that's big. Being familiar with that, what the fallout zone is for the ice to come off of that tower as a safety around it. I just want to know if they've done a study on that or not, of the ice falling off the tower. And it does happen, and it's landed out in 4th Street before. There was actually a building over here, previous golf course people had, that was over here was a maintenance building, and ice went through the roof on that metal building. I just want to know if there's any kind of study that's been done on the ice coming off that tower. Thank you.
You just did.
Jason Tedder, I live on 4th Street on the other side of the county. I just have a question. So we just approved to change this back to agricultural. Do we need to have another meeting to change it to commercial and industrial before we issue a permit to build something?
That'll be a question we'll address in the rebuts.
Yeah.
My name's Richard Woolley. I have a question about the total cost and the associated amount of money that might be. What is the estimated total cost? And construction's great for the county. We need all the construction, all the new labor that can be provided. But is there a cost estimate on the whole development as far as what your expectations are? Also, is there ever a construction bond that might be set aside to make sure fulfillment is occurred as far as all the planning? Maybe a construction loan bond by some insurance company that makes sure everything is paid for, or that they adhere to the rules and regs? Does the commission have any idea what the exact estimated cost will be on the development? Thank you.
My name is Keisha Brandt. I live at the Inn 1606 North Victory. And as much as I want to support something like this in our county, because I am a small business owner in Reno County, the project has not gotten off to a great start with me. I was first informed that that all the properties were marked as abandoned and we're not even supposed to live there, as the guys were invading my land to rip things apart. We've picked up 37 nails in 2 vehicles in a month, to where we have had to detour our path just so we can make it into town. I got up last week to 100-foot-long flames that were taller than my house. And yes, we have PTSD. We lost everything 3.5 years ago. That is a traumatizing day. Our neighbor passed away trying to get out of those 12-foot wide roads. And that it brings me to another thing. Victory is not considered a road. So all the damage they've done, my husband and I are footing the bill to repair that road, because we are the only ones that deal with the road of the Victory. The township doesn't send their big tractors down that road. My husband bought a skid steer just for the sole purpose. So we are repeatedly having to take care of this now. So there has been ongoing issues that I do not support this.
Any other comments?
First off, I agree with the question on the sewage and the fresh water there next to it. And then on the...
Can we have your name, please?
Wayne Anderson, I'm sorry. The next thing on your turn off of Bueller Haven, 313 lets out about 3 o'clock, and there'll be a traffic from 4 o'clock, which that probably won't be near as much as at Prairie Dune, so I don't know if it'll be a problem, but in case some of you aren't close, I know you and the President used to live up in my neighborhood. But I don't really appreciate how they went to inform us about the water usage. He sounded to me like they was out after every ounce of water they could get, and they was going to get it one way or the other. And 2 of you have lived in the sand hills, and I imagine more of you They need to rethink it. I hope you rethink it very deeply on the water usage and how they use it.
Any other comments? Does the applicant wish to rebut any of the statements that were made?
Technical side things like we're good. Yeah, nope, we're good. Okay,
All right. Okay, staff, do you have any additional or any rebuttal?
No rebuttal on the staff report or any, some of the comments here I was trying to address, I think here. Regarding the comment about another hearing to change the zoning to commercial and industrial, we do not have commercial and industrial zoning districts in Reno County, and so this is the public hearing to permit potentially all of the land uses that they are proposing right now. There is no rezone to commercial or industrial districts in Reno County. Everything is strictly ag, or it's going to be zoned residential, and you do a conditional use permit. Regarding the other comment, the total cost of development has not been provided to staff, nor is it really any of our business. We're in the business of land use. We don't get into how much a project costs. That's something that's private, and we don't need to know that. We're interested in the land use. Construction bonds, there's really no public infrastructure going in. It's all private roads and stuff, and so there's no need for those either. So that's all the comments I have on that, I think.
Thank you. Does this commission have any further questions for the applicant or staff?
I guess I would ask on the parking thing, is, 25 spaces around the cart storage, like I said, I assume that's for employees. And is that, do you have an estimate of the number of employees that will be on site at any one time?
Yeah, we feel that we have sufficient parking at the maintenance facility for all the employees that we'll have.
They're thinking near the clubhouse, is there, or?
Well, I think the 25 he's referring to is down here, and that's not the cart storage building, that's the maintenance facility.
Okay.
And we feel that's sufficient, yeah.
That's sufficient, then any overflow of employees would be up where your guest parking is?
Correct.
So the staff at the clubhouse will have parking somewhere surrounding the clubhouse?
The 200 stalls.
Just in those 200 stalls will satisfy that? Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, can I ask, so you're building something along the pit there? Like a maintenance building or something, you said where the parking was?
Yeah, off of 4th Avenue.
Where that pit is? You're gonna have buildings there?
No,
People?
along the road there.
And there's not gonna be any other, I'm sorry, Sandy Brooks, I live out there across on 4th Street. No entrance east of the tower area? There's no entrance into the place that way?
No entrance past the tower property.
Is that golf course there? Is that what that is? Golf course that goes all the way down there? Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant or staff?
I guess I would just have one observation, that they might consider doing a better job of working with their subcontractors to maintain the roadways around the construction area, it sounds like. People are talking about a lot of flat tires and things, and I know that's very aggravating and whatnot. And, any of these large brush pile burns, I've seen those, and I know they can be disturbing, and just maybe providing the neighbors that there's going to advance notice of that, so if they're not alarmed, would be a good neighborly gesture, so to speak.
So I've got one last minute question. Down there on 4th Street, there's that area for employee housing, but I think in the written testimony, it's not planned on being built at this time. Is that
Correct, it's not, we have no plans to build that.
Okay, so if we approve the site plan as it stands tonight, and hypothetically you want to go back and fill that in later, like what size of a building or how many people do you expect to be living on site?
Well, we hadn't even got that far. We had it in there as a placeholder if that's something we thought that we may want to do, but the owner's indicated this time that not something that he wants to pursue.
I have a question for the applicant on the KDHE. Are they aware of, I think there was mention about the flooding possibility. Are they aware of that, making provisions?
Yeah, they would make us at least show that it's not in a floodplain. If it's localized flooding, that's sometimes difficult, but the lagoon should have bermed edges so that water does not get in. No rainwater enters the facility. It also can throw off all of the things that a lagoon is trying to do with your BODs, trying to treat the water. If rainwater is getting into your system, then usually your cultures and everything get thrown off. So that's a big deal to allow it to get flooded. So we're going to, KDHE is going to require us to basically prove without a shadow of a doubt that it's not being flooded, or else it doesn't function.
A suggestion for the applicant, you do need to figure out the ice pattern fall off of that tower.
Yeah. And I grew up at 15 North Victory, so nearby. I guess I would think that the property line would kind of try to encompass that, but I guess I don't.
Quarter-mile radius from the tower.
Well, I mean, just for the protection of anything you're building around
I
there.
think that's probably a good thing.
Thanks, Don. Any other questions for the applicant or staff?
You have I don't know if it's a good question, but do you have a time frame established at this point yet, or?
No.
No, we have some goals, but we don't have the entire time frame laid out yet. We do plan to start construction soon, this year, this fall, or winter and spring, to start construction on the first golf course.
Well, I would like to thank those who made comments. I thought there were some really good comments made, and I hope that the developers' ears were listening. I thought there were some really important suggestions. Water is on my mind. I know a couple of you mentioned water. I have lived in the sandhills, and water in the sand does not behave like water elsewhere. And so I understand the concern about the compromising of the sanitation holding pond there, as well as other areas. I don't know what that's a beautiful property, and it's got highs and lows, and sand is quite interesting when it comes to water. So, but the use of the water, I guess, I have to defer to the experts in that field, and is that the Kansas Department of Health and Environment?
It would be the Department of Water Resources or Department of Agriculture. They both kind of handle water. It's a double check, but KDA or DWR would be your two contacts. And we've already been in contact with them to confirm the existing water rights and make sure we're understanding our usage and what we can legally.
And again, sand and trying to have nice, I can't imagine trying to groom a golf course in these sand hills and the amount of water that it's going to take. So I do have that concern, I really do. And, the ag community has started learning about water and how to manage it. So I hope, I'm just relying on the experts in the field to make sure the water rights are used correctly.
said you'd contacted the city about possibility of city water. Is that a quantity issue or a quality issue?
I think it is a combination of things. We would like it for fire protection to come out to the site. We'd like it for backup water in case, in a drought period for the golf course. And, but also that we don't want to manage drinking water on site for guests, and we'd rather that was treated city water.
Don, is that a common thing in Reno County where the city's providing water to a large customer, 5 miles outside of the city limits?
I don't know that no, but they're in negotiation on how that would all work too. So it's possible the city can provide water wherever they want to, whether annexed or not annexed. I'm sure that part of the negotiation is the cost of a very expensive line running out there, but that's between them and the city.
Is there any rural water out there? How far away is the nearest?
I don't know of any rural water out there.
No, nothing at all.
Rural water.
Any other questions? Alan? Harley? Steve? Dick? No. George? Keith? Okay. Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Acceptance of or denial of a rezone of this conditional use permit must be based on the factors that were listed in the staff report and found on the audience chairs. This is the time the planning commission can discuss the case and ask procedural questions of staff only. Got a lot of information this evening about this case. Is there any other discussion we need to have about this?
I guess the thought that entered my mind was the entrance there and the Newer Haven Road and the traffic going out there and being able to safely enter the road from this new property or safely enter the road, exit or enter it. And you use the word turn lanes to get turned in there. I don't have an opinion, I just say that enters my mind as a possible concern.
This guy next to you is expertise.
Well, I don't know if that'd be any greater than Prairie Dunes, and it surely is not going to be as much as the school coming out on 30th on the east side of 61. And that's 2-lane. But that's something we need to see what it's going to prevail. I don't know.
Any other discussion?
I see a bunch of different road widths in the staff report and kind of what we've heard tonight in testimony. Is there any feeling from the other members of the commission on where we should go as far as defining access? Are we happy with the minimums provided?
24 feet, I think,
That's probably all right.
adequate, yeah, because I guess that'll handle two-way traffic with emergency equipment.
Are we happy with the 12 or 20 for the secondary access?
12 in
There's 12 in here, and then we heard
20 verbally would probably
Yeah.
be better for me than it would be the 12.
That's what I was
For
thinking.
that service road, basically, is what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. I think 20 foot would probably be better than 12.
Because we have had comments tonight about access to other developments out in the sandhills, and I think that's a concern it's something that we could take care of now instead of having to worry about 10 or 20 years down the road.
So
I was in one of
item,
Mark's.
item 4 of the conditions, do we need to amend that?
Make that a 20.
Make that a 20 for the secondary.
20 foot wide, yeah.
I would be okay with that.
Is that the consensus of the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion on this case.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. Do I need to refer to the 12 to 20 foot change that we've proposed?
I'd say that you could probably bring that up as one of the changes of the conditions of item 4 to 20 feet.
Okay, I would move the case number 2025-12, the request by 2641 Wanamaker LLC, requesting a conditional use permit from the Reno County zoning regulations to establish a golf course resort on 2 parcels of land zoned agricultural district be approved based on the 10 factors and 8 conditions of approval listed in the staff report and as heard at this public hearing. I further move to grant a waiver from the loading space requirement and the parking stall requirement for the maintenance facility and lodge buildings, and would note the change in condition number 4, changing 12 feet to 20 feet.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I guess I felt like there are a number of things that are not exactly nailed down. And I don't know that it's different than in any other large development, but it makes me a little nervous as someone who made a motion to proceed, knowing that there's some wiggle room. And so I guess I'm saying this to staff that I think there's some need for a fair amount of follow-up to make sure that what has been spoken here tonight and committed to actually happens.
I would just ask that, this is a major project that is going to have an impact on the surrounding property owners for some time during its construction, and I would ask that the applicant be mindful of that and do what they can to mitigate any impact on those neighbors.
Water seems to be a big on the mind.
Yep, it is.
Agriculturally, they're tied to the deepest of requirements to be good stewards of that natural resource. And I admonish to the developer that they hold to those same standards, that they don't waste that drop of water, because it is a very, very critical resource.
That goes in golf course design, because irrigation methods and what the like farmers are putting in underground irrigation systems, whatever. So it's just, whatever you can do to minimize the usage is good. dry well.
Nobody wants a dry well. Nobody wants one sucking sand either.
I guess I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to those who are investing and working on this project. As a gentleman from Wells mentioned, it's a substantial impact to, a positive impact to Reno County in terms of money and money turning over. So we appreciate the willingness to make an investment in Reno County. And we want it to be the best that it can be, and for those who come here to use it, to be safe and enjoy Reno County. And for those who have to live around it, I would ask that you be good neighbors.
Any other comments on this motion?
I call for the previous question.
Staff, will you please call the roll?
Nisley,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Seltzer,
Yes.
Macklin,
Yes,
Martin,
Yes.
and Gertson.
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, thank you for all that have presented. Thank you for all those that have commented. Appreciate your time, appreciate your opinions. We're going to take a short break in between the next two items, the next item.
Are we going to return?
We will return in 5 minutes. pull her back on, we'll rein her back in and we'll go back to work. We've got one more item on the agenda is item F, case 2025.10, a proposed zoning text amendment to amend or create articles regarding telecommunication towers, additional dwelling units, manufactured homes, shipping containers, and there's a list of proposed text amendments. I won't read through every one of those. We've worked through all of those ourselves, so we kind of know where we're at. Staff, you want to kind of give us the background and go from there?
Been a few months, board, since we discussed this, but as you recall, back in November's meeting, we felt these text amendments were sufficient enough to set a public hearing date. And you set the public hearing date for tonight. After we reviewed this document and after you conceptually approved of it, I was going back and reviewing it, and I noticed what I believe was as a conflict, as I had noted in my short memo to the board regarding the shipping containers. We had a lot of discussion on shipping containers in the ag and in the residential, and I think we finally landed upon, we're going to allow for shipping containers. But in looking at that, the board said that they wanted to do a conditional use permit if you go beyond 4 shipping containers in the ag. I don't believe that that was the intent of the board, and nor do I believe that we should maybe burden the county commission with having to approve a conditional use permit to go above 4 shipping containers. I believe it's better served if we leave it at the BZA level, where the BZA will review if somebody wants to have additional shipping containers than what's permitted by the regulations. And the fact that if you go and turn to the section in the regulations in the residential zoning districts, it does reference BZA, so I believe there's a conflict. I changed it against what you had initially approved. I felt like you initially wanted to do the BZA, but I missed it, and I think the board maybe missed it as well. I can certainly change it back if it's the will of the board to have it as a conditional use, but I believe that staff should have it as a BZA case and not that. If you want it back as a conditional use, but now we got to change it in the residential zoning district. But as you had said, Mr. Chair, you know, this is a request on telecommunication towers where if you meet certain criteria that we have established in the regulations, then cell towers will be permitted by right and not require a conditional use permit. That was based mainly on the fact that state legislature has really taken a lot of our review authority away. That the only thing that we have to review anymore are setbacks and fencing, you know, lights, co-location, need, all those things that we would typically review are now not in our realm to be able to review. Question?
I thought the gentleman's comment about the ice falling was pretty valid.
Yeah.
And I don't recall that we ever had that thought.
We don't do a lot of guy towers, but yeah, we don't have anything with, in the regular discussion about ice or so. But to say that though, that's why we have the 1-to-1 setback ratio, height of the tower to a property line. So if there is, you know, a situation where you have ice falling off the guy towers or even at the top of the tower, the goal behind that would be that it would fall on the person's property. If it falls on his own buildings, well, that's something that that property owner has to take into consideration when he's allowing a cell tower company to put a tower on his property.
They're not 1,200 feet tall either.
Right. Well, I was
So
just thinking
blow,
of
rifts fall, yeah.
Those are some pretty unique circumstances in the fact of how those were placed, I think, too. What, in the previous case, how they did not have, how close they are to the road, those types of things.
The ice situation did come up, I believe, many years ago with actually that tower out there and the Cottonwood Hills development, because ice is a valid concern, a very valid concern on guy towers. They accumulate on the guy wires out there and then start melting, then wind, eventually it'll blow it off, and it could blow off several large sheets, you know, that could do damage to a person's property. The one other situation that I wanted to bring up. I'm getting more and more calls about doing ADUs, and I've told them that we are actually proposing an amendment to allow an additional dwelling on a property. And I had a situation come up, somebody's interested in it. I tried to find, I'm not quite at that regulation yet, but the wordage talks about the ADU has to be adjacent to or behind the primary residence. Yeah. So question, and and I discussed this with Don a little bit too, so he knows what I'm going to say is there a distance the ADU has to be from the primary residence, or can adjacent be 300, 500, 600 feet away from the primary residence? Or was the intent of the board to say adjacent to needs to be 100 feet or less, 200 feet or less? Or like, picture your own properties, for example, if you've got a property with a lot of frontage, your house is on the west side of your property and you got 900 foot of frontage, can the other house be on the opposite side of the property, and is that considered adjacent to? It's even or behind.
I was thinking, adjacent in my mind, and you're right, we probably need a number, and that's gonna be a hard one to nail down. But adjacent to me was, it kind of played into health and environment. If that ADU needed a separate septic,
Yeah.
that the health and environment could help us determine that if it's on a certain size lot. And if they were tying into existing septic, it would also determine adjacent. So you're throwing us a curveball.
I am throwing the curveball, and I apologize to the board for that. And the reason I'm doing that is because this actually occurred after I even wrote the memo and sent this to the board. And I would say most cases, and correct me if I'm wrong, the ADU is going to be for a family member, and they're going to want to share the wastewater system and not put a separate in. This is a situation potentially where the cabin, the ADU, is going to be 500, 600, 700 feet away from another wastewater system, so they're not going to want to run a line all the way to the other one. They may want to just put their own wastewater in. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear and that this board is clear on what adjacent. Now, as it reads, adjacent to is unlimited distance. Adjacent to could be 50 feet, or adjacent to could be 700 feet, so long as it's even or behind the existing primary residence.
So in this case, it may be 700 feet behind, but it's sharing utilities with the principal dwelling.
Single electrical meter.
Single meter.
I mean, yeah, there's that consideration too.
Because I think that would provide a natural limit if you have to share an entrance and share utilities and share a street address.
Right.
Now, does emergency management have a problem with residents being 700 feet away from a different residence and sharing the same street address?
It could be a bike path to there for all we know.
Yeah. It could. Well, and if you have a 911 call come in to 123 East 43rd,
yeah,
but you're plus or minus 700 feet.
Yeah.
If we're sharing an address.
Sharing a driveway, the whole.
Sharing a driveway, sharing an address, they're pulling in. Somebody's having a heart attack, but
knocking on their own door, should be the other door.
And the door's an eighth of a mile or a quarter mile away. So that's, I guess in my mind, if it has to share utilities, entrance, and address, that there should be a natural limit to how far that sharing goes.
And I agree. I think that is a natural maybe limitation, but I just want to be as transparent as I can with the board here and say, this is the scenario that's come up. Yeah, you're going to have two dwellings 500, 600 feet, 700 feet away, share an address. If they don't want that situation, then it's not classified as an ADU. It's classified as a second dwelling, in which case you need to do a lot split and meet all those regulations. But sorry for the curveball, as you had said. I just wanted to point out that that's another scenario that maybe I hadn't thought of.
So
we maybe should have better defined it, but
So we can put that into the regulations tonight, can we not? Or is
Still
that-
can. And that's why I brought it up, because we still have that opportunity, to do that if we feel there's a need. But I like Alan's points a lot, where I think there might be enough regulation in place where it would prevent that scenario potentially.
I would say the same utilities, though, does that include septic?
No, it'd be like mainly
Water,
the,
electric,
yeah.
gas, or whatever.
So are they laying a 700-foot water line from their well or from the house to the second house?
I haven't heard back from I was actually talking to the surveyor about that, so I have not had communication with the owner. But this is just a scenario that's.
It is. It's kind of like the last one. They're talking about going 5 miles for public water. Here, like 700 feet to a private well. These are all very large numbers with large price tags.
Right. And so I don't know if it's going to be an issue. I just want to make sure you're clear and I'm clear that adjacent could be 50 feet, could be 500 foot.
Are there county regulations on addressing?
No, we have no address ordinance whatsoever that guides me on how to assign an address or when to assign an address.
So in that case, then, you got your two houses 700 feet apart on a parcel. All right, what's the address and where does the point go for the PSAP?
The way I do it is right now the address is based off of your driveway, and then I put the address point on the house where it is. And so
in this case, it would be on the principal house.
principal
So
house.
if you got a call for service from a guy 700 feet in the back, there might
have to
be
be able to direct them to that.
direct to the other house that has the same address.
If they want a separate address or separate utilities, then that's not an ADU. So.
What about the restrictive deed issue? The ADU cannot be sold separately. Can you talk through that?
That's just
I mean, if we allow something to be a long way away, it seems like it almost would invite being sold off as a separate residence.
Yes. In the scenario that I'm thinking about, though, this person would not be able to split the ground because they don't have enough acreage to create a new parcel with a new address. So that's one of the things where it got me to thinking, okay, this person has 4.5 acres, zoned R1, minimum is 3 acres, and so this person is unable to split their ground off under that zoning district and create a separate buildable parcel. So his only option is the ADU. And so then at that point in time, what is adjacent? Adjacent is where this person, say, would want his additional dwelling, could be 500, 600, 700 feet away.
My shop is adjacent to my house and it's about 75 feet away.
Yeah, that's what I think of as
So
adjacent.
I'm thinking, okay,
Put a qualifier in 100, 150 feet max.
yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know, just for a number.
Well,
Well, to avoid the issues that Mark's talking about.
Well, the one reason, Don, is I think, just to Mark's point, you're protecting that landowner from a sellable parcel. If they put that ADU out there, that parcel becomes pretty big that they, I mean, if they, well, of course, this one is non-separable anyhow. That doesn't play in.
is there like a topographical reason why in this hypothetical, maybe not so much scenario, that the distance is so great? Or is it just a desire to be together separately?
It's just from what I was told where they wanted the second dwelling was a pretty substantial distance away from where the principal.
Yeah.
So they've got a pond in the pasture that they want to put an ADU around, and it's 700 feet from the main house.
Cabin, a pond, like you said.
I don't.
I would think as a practical matter, it would be challenging and cost prohibitive to meet the regulations as we write it.
Yeah, like I said.
But if money is no object,
It is true.
do we really care?
Do we care if they have a 700-foot water line running from their well?
No.
And they have a personal sewer lift pump that shoves their sewage.
And we do
700
state
feet.
that the ADU cannot be sold separately from the principal dwelling.
So they're creating their own piece of ground, so adjacent might be a good enough definition. Because all of a sudden, we start writing about adjacent to ADUs, and then we're gonna say adjacent to shops, and then we're gonna say adjacent to barns, and then we're gonna say adjacent to.
You say 100 feet, and then somebody, for whatever reason, they want to be 125, and now we're doing a variance.
Yes, because they wanna put it behind a shop instead of, I'm thinking of my place. I can't think of a place close, within 100 feet of my house, that it would work. I'd have to be outside that, then we gotta come in for, like you say, for a variance, and that creates a whole different can of worms.
We're back to, special exceptions for sheds like we did, and so, that'll happen. I just want to make sure I have 7 people on this board that understand what that regulation is, and you.
Well, I think, where we've got that covered down there where it says you can't sell it separately unless you go ahead and do subdivision.
Yeah.
And then, that share in the water and electrical will have to.
Goes away.
Goes away.
That goes away then. You gotta cut it off and put your own in.
And the single drive goes away.
Yeah.
They'll have to figure a different egress.
So that's a whole, but as long as they're following these regulations, we're not adding driveways, we're not adding utilities,
We're just putting a T in the water line and
Yeah.
another junction on the water.
And if somebody wants to lay 700 feet of water line and put their own sewer lift pump in there.
I think adjacent probably defines it good enough for me. The more I think about it, I'm going, adjacent is fine.
It's in my mind, okay, because I'm like, okay, what's the definition of adjacent? It's like, I went to him, we had a discussion, and now I'm come to you.
Okay, that brings a different thought. Do we need to define adjacent in the definitions?
No, I don't think, because.
It just can't be in front of the house.
Can't be in front.
Because we've already done that somewhat, haven't we? Done.
And see, I think you're doing what I do. In my mind, adjacent is a defined number, 100 foot. Is something adjacent to another thing if it's 700 feet away? In my mind, no. I had this discussion and argument with Don here, and it's pretty lengthy and stuff, so, but the way it reads.
I think we've got enough natural limitations, and it's just gonna be one parcel. An ADU by definition is one parcel, right?
Yeah.
So.
I do too. I just want to make sure that I was doing your intent here and stuff. It always comes up, you never know if the regulation is good until you start putting it in action here, when somebody requests something, and then you start looking at it, deeper. To your question, go ahead.
I'm thinking back to our golf course people, and we had concern expressed by the fire department about access to, road width access to these lodges. Well, in essence, we've got the same situation here. If I'm trying to get a fire truck to the ADU, which is 700 feet back in the pasture, do we need to try to address that?
That's really a property owner. They need to be aware of that situation. I mean, we can't regulate everything.
Would that be part of your conversation you have with them when you give them the permit?
Sure, as long as I'm here, yes. I mean, I bring stuff like this up all the time to people, and because they don't think about that scenario. If they're putting a small cabin on their pond way in the back, they don't think about what happens if I have a situation, and getting a fire truck and ambulance back there. And so, I have those conversations with people. You had talked about the deed restriction. The deed restriction is like an added safeguard to future owners of that property. It's like, okay, I like this property here, and I like the house, but, on down the line, I don't want to necessarily, have a second residence on my property and pay those property taxes, so I'd like to be able to split that off. Well, if they're doing the research, at the deeds office, and they see that type of deed restriction, hopefully that'll generate a conversation with me to say, hey, do I have the ability to split this house off? And at that point in time, I'll be able to discuss with that owner whether it's possible or not possible and help them make that decision on whether to purchase that property, or are they, you know, for lack of a better term, stuck with two houses on that property. So that's why we would go that route. So back to the shipping containers, thoughts on that? Leave it with the BZA and leave it as I have written.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we just wanted to set a limit before where it's applicable by right.
Right. Now, I think it's appropriate to have it the BZA. I don't want to burden the commission, county commission, you know, with a conditional use permit to have 6 shipping containers instead of 4. You know, hopefully we have few and far between, something like that, but that, I believe, is something that can definitely stay down at the BZA level and not rise up to the county commission.
How many shipping containers can the Salt Lick Golf Course have?
Ag, and so they could have their 4.
They want more than 4?
Once this is passed. Now, right now, if we're talking the here and now, we don't, they can have
Could
as many
stack
as they
them in
want.
like cordwood.
Yeah, they can have as many as they want. If this passes as presented, then they can have 4. If they want more for some reason, then BZA. But yeah, we don't regulate them in the ag district. It's only in the residential districts.
Is there something in there about temporary use of shipping containers?
There is not a temporary. No, I don't-
Construction project of some kind?
not a temporary use. Yes.
In the R1,
Again.
R1, R2, 1 shipping container is permitted by right. More than that has to come through.
I don't like temporary stuff. It's like, oh, I just want a temporary building on my property. Well,
Yeah.
what's the definition of temporary? And how do you monitor that? And temporary is forever, and it never goes away when.
Kind of like
they say-
adjacent.
Yeah.
Before you know it, we'll be wanting to regulate the big red boxes nicely set on the property to do, you know, the big trash containers.
Yep.
So why do we want to do that? Why do we want to do temporary?
It's either yes or no. If it goes away, great. If it doesn't, it's permitted to stay there forever.
Well, and if they want to have a large amount for construction purposes, that's probably something that should come up during the conditional use permit process, shouldn't it?
Yeah. For a business.
Yes. For a business.
For a business, correct.
Like the previous Salt Lick, you know, if they're going to stack 100 construction trailers and containers alongside all their neighbors, that's probably something that we can discuss.
Very good.
Okay?
I think you're done.
All right, good.
Thank
We'll
you.
put it up for audience comments.
Yes. Got any audience comments? Come on.
Do I have to go up there?
Yes, you do. We play by the rules every chance we get here. We don't always play by the rules, but we got it in this one.
I know you all looked at me like, uh-oh, she's gonna do me.
No, not at all.
Here for a reason.
I was not here for the previous, yeah. Okay. Margie Westfall, Haven. I may have missed this, but and if it's in there, I apologize. Is there a definition for shipping container anywhere in your new text?
Yes, there was.
Okay.
I believe.
Intermodal freight containers, intermodal freight container. I think that's what it was called.
Is that under definitions?
We may not have had an official definition, but that's what the regulations say.
If it's in our definition section, have you?
See it, but I couldn't miss it.
It would be in Article 1 of the definitions.
I didn't see it.
Don't see an intermodal.
Do you have the regs? I didn't bring mine.
Shipping container.
Alan's looking, I can look it up, but it'd be quicker if you could do it.
I don't know if it'll be quicker if I do it or not.
Article 1 under the definitions.
Russ is trying to find it.
I'm digging.
See who's
Right.
fastest here.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna get my book out.
All right, so that's right at the beginning.
I know.
Yes.
Well, the problem is somebody's thrown years of notes just randomly. And
You don't
I don't
have a
know.
three-ring binder like Russ does. so he's
no,
got
I'm
his
not a
updated.
pro. I'm just an
He got his
amateur.
updated. Don't you use it on your computer, Mark?
I do not. I do.
He'll look it up.
That's probably a good catch, Margie, because I do
Well,
not see.
I do not
60
see an
days.
intermodal shipping
No,
container.
I do not.
So,
So I have a definition.
you do? I mean, typically, if it's not
I
in,
looked it up.
if it's not in the regulations, we would just defer to Webster's dictionary.
I did it.
Is that what you have? Okay. That's usually the way it works. If something isn't defined in the regs, we just defer to the common definition in the Webster's dictionary.
So getting back to that, what Google and DuckDuckGo said.
Yeah.
It's a large, standardized, reusable steel box used to transport goods globally via ship, rail, and truck, enabling seamless intermodal freight movement without unloading the cargo. But, whatever. Now, the reason I was asking that, I'm going to try to be real delicate about this because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm going to use this as a scenario. The railroad cars that you've probably seen around the county,
Yeah.
those would be shipping containers, right? Okay. So,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, would they, if they're not if it's like a rail car, because it's not a standard intermodal.
well, your definition, unless you change the definition, I mean, I would be very specific on your definition of a shipping container.
That's it, because if it's a rail car, is that considered a vehicle? I mean, they were built with wheels.
Well, to take the wheels off.
Take the wheels off.
So the wheels are off of these.
So then it's a big metal box.
Right.
Well, I think the intermodal design is, to me, is the break point, because those are specifically designed for use on multiple platforms, rail car,
Ship,
highway,
semi.
ship.
Yep.
I think that's kind of why we added that intermodal. Instead of just saying shipping container like everybody thinks what a shipping container is, that's why we added the intermodal freight containers.
Okay.
Disagree?
I'm just bringing this up.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's good. Good point.
Yeah, so is a shipping container then anything that is a box that you can ship stuff in?
It was built to ship stuff in.
Semi-trailers.
Semi-trailers.
Yeah, if you take the wheels off a
Railroad cars, you
semi-trailer.
take the wheels off.
Right.
Or
Semi-trailers, they just jack them up on blocks and set them out there.
or turn them into an Airbnb.
Turn them into an Airbnb. Well, railroad cars.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that a shipping container?
Not at that point, because it's a house. At that point, it'd be a house, if it's gonna be a.
If it's gonna be, if they're gonna reside in it. or-
Yeah. I know there's some out there.
Because you can build a house out of anything.
Right now.
You can build a
But
house
it's
out of shipping containers.
But an Airbnb is a rental for
Yes.
temporary rental. So that is just,
That's a commercial use, so it's gotta be good.
You want to build an Airbnb out of shipping containers, Margie?
no, we've got too much crap in ours. And they've been there long before I came on the scene, so no.
Right now, we don't regulate Airbnbs. A lot of counties and or cities are, which I don't know how we would do. We don't regulate it right now.
Well, when you were talking about shipping containers, I thought, okay, are the railroad cars that are being turned into Airbnbs, are those your shipping containers?
Well, those are going to fall under other regulations, though, for temporary lodging. If they're rented out, I can't remember what the reg is, but if they're rented out so much, then they have to meet certain requirements.
Right.
It's more stringent as the more they're rented.
Do we have short-term rental
regulations?
No. We don't have anything like that.
So a residence is a residence in Reno
A
County.
residence is I mean, a lot, like I said, a lot of counties and more cities are beginning to regulate. I've had calls from cities and counties wanting to know what our regs are, and right now, we don't regulate Airbnbs. I mean, there's thousands of them.
So once that rail car gets turned into a house, it's treated the same.
It's treated as a house
as
at that point.
stick-built ranch.
Yeah, right.
And
Yes.
there's bedrooms and kitchens and bathrooms. And
Right.
Yeah, you take 3 shipping containers, make them into a house, they're not shipping containers anymore.
Right.
Another house.
That's, I was just asking what the definition of
Yeah.
your, okay. Yeah,
Very good.
I didn't.
That's it?
Thank you, Morgan.
You bet.
Any other discussion? No more comments? Last chance. Any other comments on these text amendments? Chair will entertain a motion.
Chair, I move that case 2025-10, the request by the Planning Commission requesting a series of text amendments to Articles 1 through 6, Article 9, Article 14 to 15 of the zoning regulations be approved as presented in the staff report and as heard at this public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, staff, please call the roll.
Nicely? Yes. Strand?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Meltzer?
Yes.
Macklin?
Yes,
Martin? And Gerson?
Yes. Motion carries. Are there any other items of business that need to be brought before this board, staff, or otherwise?
What's our next project?
Well, that's a good question. Mark and I were talking about that earlier, prior to the meeting. There aren't any cases to be heard in
There
February.
are no public hearings scheduled for February. We could potentially have a couple more cases for March if they get their materials to me. But nothing in February at this point in time, definitely. So,
one suggestion would be to revisit the list that we made in December. Just kind of brush that up and determine a priority. I don't know if we want to meet just for that, or if there's some discussion that will ensue. If you want to wait till March to do that, do you want to do, what's the flavor of the board here?
Does staff have a preference of a burning topic that we need to get going on sooner rather than later?
they're all burning topics, I guess. No, I don't. Like I've mentioned before, home occupations, subdivision regulations, and answering the question of private road or public road, and the requirement that you develop 8 residential lots when you rezone from ag to residential. I mean, that's something that I think, in my mind, I guess if I have to declare, I would say that's probably my hot topic right now. We just did 3 waivers for parking and loading dock requirements. Again, we always do those. I'm tired of putting them in staff reports. I know you're tired of granting them and stuff, and so that's something that I think we can also look at. But and then whatever else this board wants to discuss. But, I mean, if you want, we could have a hour-long discussion and start that topic. I don't know if I'll be able to get you any kind of draft in time, since I have 3 cases I need to get going, but we can certainly try.
Why don't, if that's all right with everyone, we'll meet in February and we'll get our priority list done.
Okay.
And that will give you kind of the marching orders, because right now you're just kind of shooting at the wall with a shotgun. You kind of want to be a little bit more laser focused with what you want to work on. So let's meet briefly in February.
Okay.
Get our priority list, maybe a short discussion on what that list looks like, what our initial thoughts are, and then you've got direction for future meetings.
Maybe we can keep that list down to 3 or 4 items this time instead of, 10 or 12 like we just did.
There you go. Yeah, so what does this board need from me then for February?
I think just that you might just share the list
Share
that
the
we.
list again?
Yeah, please. Share that list again. I know I've got notes, I've got to go back and review them, but it would be good to have your official list and then we could work off of
I have a
that.
hard time finding what my other,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't send it the previous time we started discussion, but I can certainly, I have it, I can share it.
Okay.
So it'll be a short packet this time for February, so super good. Okay.
I have two quick comments. I was struck on this golf course project, going through the information, and we have regulation about how wide the strip should be for a parking spot and how big the parking spot should be. But we've got 30 people sleeping in a lodge, and we have no requirements for any kind of safety issues. That really bothered me. And I asked a question, and I hope that the answer is true, that they will have fire suppression. I don't know if that comes from the state fire marshal or who, if there's any such a thing, but it did strike me that we care about the width of a stripe on a parking lot, but not 30 people.
A lot of it has to do with building codes, which we don't have building codes in the county, but, also then, just because there's no building code doesn't mean that they don't have to meet other state requirements, such as you mentioned, fire marshal. I can tell you there's a few projects that we've done in the past where here's your permit, go ahead and start building, and all of a sudden, the fire marshal shows up at the door and saying, well, you have to do X, Y, and Z for your commercial building, for example. So there are some state fire regulations that people have to abide by, especially for commercial development or places of assembly. So there's things like that, and that goes through Hutch Fire Department. So when I send notices to these hearings, they get a copy of the things that you get, and so they're able to make contact with those property owners and do inspections, meeting state fire code requirements. But other things like that, we don't have it in our zoning regulations to be able to mandate sprinklers or other types of safety issues, unfortunately. I mean, that comes with codes. So.
And my other comment is, I mentioned it at the end of the public hearing, I did feel like there's a lot of wiggle room in this project as presented, and as I read through the developer's report, that, we're working on this, we're considering this. There's a lot of that commentary in there, and I know that you are pretty much a one-man band when it comes to zoning, and so, okay, who's gonna go check on these wiggle room things and make sure that this is the way we talked about tonight? I know you have limited capacity, but if we're gonna do these large projects, I feel like enforcement or at least checking on progress ought to be happening somehow.
Well, that's why you see some pretty general conditions of approval and something that you can quantify, like paving of the road, paving of Beulah Road. That's in the regs now, okay? Now you've mandated that you want a 20-foot wide access road on the south side. Those are easy to be able to check and verify. So, but part of it is this is obviously a huge project, and we don't care about dollar amount. It's obvious that this is going to be, big for them. They don't want to go forward too far until they have some assurances that they have the approval to do that project, as well. You're not going to start investing. You're not going to go and get an approval from KDHE for this giant lagoon system here that's thousands of dollars in design until they have some assurances that the project can now go forward. So there's some of that.
I understand that, but then after tonight, it feels like we're just relying on their personal credibility and trustworthiness to follow through on what we talked about.
There it goes back. I think.
Or maybe just a, from a complaint basis, if they put up a,
We're approving a land use. We're not overseeing it.
Right.
You know. We're saying that land use is suitable for the zoning and everything else that's there.
I mean, we'll rely on other staff, county staff, emergency management people, our environmental staff, they'll keep tabs on that, I'm sure here. And the conditions that were put in place, they must meet all applicable federal, state, and local regulations. If I get word from KDHE, KDA, they don't have the right water rights, or the water rights are forfeited, or whatever the case may be, well, they're gonna have to figure that out, or that's grounds to rescind the conditional use permit. So there's some protections in place. It's not really specific, but we have those boilerplate statements that we always have as conditions of approval to help us make sure that this project is gonna be developed as they testified tonight.
if we're relying on KDHE and State Department of, whoever, and they're thinking, well, you are local guys, boots on the ground, we're relying on you to at least call us and say, hey, we don't think this is right.
Right. And we do that, we communicate with them, but they'll communicate with us as well. They'll say, hey, yeah, we don't have a permit for this yet, so, yeah, I understand the concern, but yeah, I don't think it's something to be too terribly worried about. I mean, they know what they have to do, and there's people who'll be following up on that. So, because I'm gonna hold the permits until I have something that I know is tangible. Yes, okay, yeah, we've made application to KDHE, yes, we've been working with KDA, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions.
Anything else? Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.